The afternoon sun shimmered over the glass towers of downtown as Mr. Blake Harrington, one of the city's wealthiest businessmen, stepped out of his black car. His face, usually calm and sharp, was weighed down by exhaustion. For months, he had tried every doctor, every therapy, every specialist, but nothing could help his 7-year-old daughter, Lila, walk again. He walked toward the children's hospital, bodyguards following behind. Lila was inside for another round of tests that, deep down, he knew would change nothing. As he passed the hospital gates, a small, dirt-covered boy sitting by the curb lifted his head. He couldn't have been more than 10, thin, barefoot, with piercing gray eyes that didn't match his worn face. "Sir," the boy said softly, "I can make your daughter walk again." Blake stopped in his tracks. His guards looked at each other, confused. The boy spoke again, more firmly this time. "I can help her, please." Blake frowned, ready to wave him off. "Listen, kid, I've spent millions on the best doctors. You should." "Doctors can't do what I can," the boy interrupted. His voice didn't tremble, it was calm, certain. Something about the way he said it, not begging, not desperate, but confident, made Blake freeze. "Who are you?" Blake asked. The boy looked down. "Just someone who listens to what others can't hear." Blake sighed, trying to shake it off. "Enough of this nonsense. Come on," he told his guards. But before they could move, the boy spoke again, this time in a whisper that stopped Blake cold. "Your daughter's name is Lila. She fell from a balcony. And since then, she hasn't stopped blaming herself." Blake's eyes widened. He turned sharply. "How do you know that?" The boy didn't answer. Instead, he pointed toward the hospital doors. "She's crying right now, asking if her father still loves her." Blake's breath caught in his throat. No one else could have known that. Not the press, not his staff, no one. He crouched slightly, looking at the boy closer. "What are you?" he whispered. The boy smiled faintly. "Just someone who gives back what's been taken away." Blake felt a chill. For a moment, he couldn't move. He didn't believe in miracles, not until that second. "Show me," he said quietly. "If you can do what you say, show me." The boy stood up, brushing the dust off his torn shirt. "Take me to her," he said simply. And for the first time in years, Blake Harrington, a man who had everything money could buy, felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. The hospital's automatic doors slid open with a faint whoosh as Blake led the barefoot boy inside. Nurses turned to stare. A billionaire in a suit walking beside a ragged child was not something you saw every day. Blake didn't care. His heart was pounding, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he felt both terrified and trusting. "Sir, is everything all right?" asked one of the nurses, eyeing the boy nervously. "He's with me," Blake said, his voice low but firm. "Take us to Lila's room." They entered the elevator. The boy stood silently, staring at the floor indicator lights. His reflection in the metal doors looked oddly calm, his expression unshaken. When they reached the 5th floor, Blake led him down the hall, past the pastel walls and soft beeping of monitors. At the last door, he stopped. Inside was Lila, pale, fragile, sitting in bed with her doll beside her. Her legs, wrapped in soft braces, hung still. She looked up as her father entered. "Daddy," she whispered. "Did the doctors say anything?" Blake's throat tightened. "Not yet, sweetheart, but I brought someone who might help." Lila's eyes shifted to the boy. "Who's he?" Before Blake could answer, the boy stepped forward gently. "Hi, Lila, my name's Noah." She gave a small smile. "You're not a doctor." "No," he said softly. "But I don't need to be." The nurses in the corner exchanged confused glances. "Sir," one began, "we can't allow." "It's fine," Blake said. "Just give him a minute." Noah walked closer to Lila's bedside. "May I touch your hand?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. He placed his small hand over hers, fragile against her pale skin. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was silent except for the rhythmic hum of machines. Then Noah closed his eyes. Lila gasped quietly. A soft warmth spread through her arm, like sunlight under her skin. Blake stepped closer, heart racing. "What's happening?" Noah didn't answer. His lips moved as if whispering something only he could hear. The monitors flickered once, and then, slowly, Lila's fingers twitched. "Dad," she whispered, "I can feel my toes." The nurse nearly dropped her clipboard. Blake froze. "What did you just say?" Lila looked down, eyes wide with tears. "Daddy, I can feel them." Noah opened his eyes. They looked brighter now, almost silver in the light. She's not broken, he said softly. Just holding onto something that wasn't hers to carry. And then, with trembling effort, Lila moved her foot. Blake fell to his knees beside her bed, tears filling his eyes. How is this possible? Noah smiled faintly. You loved her enough to believe again. That's all I needed. As doctors rushed in, stunned, and nurses whispered in disbelief, Blake turned to look for Noah, but the boy was already walking out the door, silent as a shadow. Blake shouted, "Wait, who are you?" Noah stopped at the doorway, sunlight falling across his face. He turned just enough to whisper, "Someone who once needed a miracle, too." Then he was gone. Blake ran through the hospital corridor, ignoring the nurses calling after him. The boy, Noah, had vanished as if the air had swallowed him whole. He reached the parking lot, scanning every corner, but there was no sign of him. Just a faint echo of footsteps that could have been his imagination. He stood there for a moment, his heart thundering. Who was that kid? He muttered under his breath. Nothing made sense. His daughter, who hadn't moved her legs in a year, had just twitched her toes. Every doctor said it was impossible. But it had happened, right before his eyes. He went back upstairs. Lila was sitting up now, smiling wider than he'd seen in months. "Daddy, he was like an angel," she said softly. "When he touched my hand, it felt like everything bad just went away." Blake knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, did he say anything else to you?" She thought for a moment. He said, "I don't have to be afraid anymore. That you don't either." Those words hit him like a weight. He swallowed hard. "Did you ask him where he lives?" She shook her head. "No, but he said he'd see you again soon." Blake's pulse quickened. How could a child know so much? That night, long after Lila fell asleep, Blake sat alone in his office. He pulled up the hospital's security footage, hoping to trace the boy's path. But when he checked the cameras, nothing. Noah wasn't on any of them. Not entering, not leaving. It was as if he'd never been there. "Impossible," Blake whispered, replaying the feed again and again. But it was empty every time. The next morning, as he left the hospital, an elderly janitor stopped him near the elevator. "You're Mr. Harrington, right? The man with the little girl?" Blake nodded. "Yes. You saw her." The janitor smiled. "Saw her walk a few steps this morning." "Miracles do happen, sir." Blake hesitated. "Did you see the boy who helped her?" "About 10 years old, brown hair, gray eyes." The old man's expression changed. "Boy," he said slowly. "Son, I've worked this floor 10 years. There's no boy here like that." But, he paused, frowning as if remembering something distant. "There used to be one. Name was Noah. Sweetest kid you'd ever meet. Used to come here with his mother for treatments." Blake's eyes narrowed. "Used to?" The janitor nodded. "Yeah. He passed away about 8 years ago. Heart condition." Blake froze. What did you say?" The janitor looked at him kindly. "Maybe that's not the same boy you saw. But funny thing. He was always saying he wanted to help people the way no one could help him." The world seemed to tilt around Blake. His mind replayed Noah's words. Someone who once needed a miracle too. For the first time, Blake didn't know whether to be afraid or grateful. All he knew was that his daughter had her life back.